Welcome to IGH Going Rogue. Today is Friday, February the 7th. And what a couple of weeks it's been. What a week this has been. Absolutely spectacular with so much news breaking. And I got to break something up because I think it's fucking hilarious. I saw a tweet by Trump that said he is signing an executive order next week to end paper straws and bringing back the plastic straws. I think everybody's going to welcome that, but holy shit, the fucking barometer on that guy goes from 0 to 60 in about a second, from one extreme to the other. We're here with a good friend of ours, Rick Sanchez. Everybody knows him. Peabody, Emmys, Golden Globes, Grammys, who knows? He's a legend in his own right, a myth. Hey, if anybody's from South Florida, you know Rick. He started this whole boom breaking crap when nobody was doing it. It was really cool. It's fascinating. I think everybody was hooked, especially your hurricane coverages that lasted for like a week and a half. They're fantastic. WSVN could just reel you in, suck you in, and keep you in. You had to run. You had to take bathroom breaks on a bucket.
One of the coolest things in my career was when President Bush Sr. Came to South Florida and presented me. You know, do you remember? You got to be old to remember this shit, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. Those of you who are millennials watching us right now probably don't even know what the hell this is. So President Bush started this thing called President Bush Sr. He started this thing called the 1,000 Points of Light. And every month he would choose one American and give them the 1,000 Points of Light award. And after I did the coverage I did of Hurricane Andrew, where I think I moved like 200 million pounds of supplies into an area that had been hit by what was at the time the worst hurricane in the history of the United States, Hurricane Andrew.
It devastated
and President
all
Bush came down and he anointed me. He gave me
really?
the 1,000 Points of Light award, and I was chosen for it. And I was also given the distinction of the United States Broadcaster of the Year, an award presented to me by Dan Rather, by the way. So in that same week, I had Dan Rather come down and George Bush come down, and they both gave me different awards. Two guys who, by the way, did not get along.
No, not at all. And
for what it's worth,
that was a crazy hurricane, by the way. Holy crap! It totally wiped out Homestead. I mean, it was crazy. Hey, so it's been a crazy week. I know you're
like drinking from a fire hose.
Well, yes. So you're a fair guy. You're a journalist. You're not a partisan hack like me. Hey, man, I call it like it is, brother. You know, I'm a fucking dick. I don't care. And, you know, I'm going to fucking smash them. You know, but here's the reality. You see both sides. You know, if you're on Fox, you're on OAN, Newsmax, you know, whoever you watch, you know, Rav, you know, Steve Bannon, whoever, you're going to hear about this disgusting corruption waste machine that is being uncovered daily, you know, by Doge and that whole operation.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
But hold on.
What you just said is very interesting because I completely, and this is one of the things I've been thinking about lately, and I'm glad you're giving me an opportunity to do it. All these guys on the right who are saying this are full of shit in many ways because they're associating what Trump's doing to a right wing or Republican movement. Bullshit. What Trump is doing is Trump. What Trump is doing has nothing to do with the left because the people he's taking down are Republicans and Democrats.
He's taking everybody. He's taking out the establishment.
Let me finish because I'm pissed off about this.
Yeah.
There is no difference in my mind between Nancy Pelosi and McConnell. Yep. None.
Zero.
They're both corrupt.
Zero.
They both take money. They both do illicit wars. They both do all the same shit. So every time I hear these people on the right go, oh, yeah, Trump's getting rid of the libtards. No. Trump's getting rid of all the shit that's wrong, and it's been created and still being manifested by both Republicans and Democrats.
Exactly. It's the political class. It's the establishment on both sides that are fucking corrupt to the core.
Correct.
And I was gonna bring up the other piece of the argument is, you know, you listen to Morning Joe, you listen to Joe and Mika and whoever, Rachel and anybody you want. And they're going nuts saying this is unconstitutional. They're destroying the poor kids in Sudan and the, you know, farmers in Mozambique and what the fuck ever. And you're like, dude, are we living in what kind of world are we living in? I was like, There's got to be a reality somewhere.
Well, they're protecting their turf. I mean, these are people Mika Brzezinski. Do you know who her father is?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, are you kidding? Talk about deep state.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about USAID, the very thing which Mr. Trump just said. I'm tired of USAID. They're going back in the fold, and they're not going to be told what to do. They're not going to tell us what to do. There's no question that USAID was essentially acting as if it was the CIA, and in many ways, it was the CIA, and it acts outside the orders, command, and manifestations of the President of the United States, and even the Congress, the Senate, and the State Department. They were just doing their own thing. They were cowboying it, man. They were freelancing. And Mr. Trump just came in and said, the gig is up. So now we're learning this agency, which they were using my tax money and your tax money, was out there doing all kinds of nefarious things. They're supposed to be a, quote, humanitarian developmental agency. To me, that means you go around the world singing Kumbaya, opening churches, making peace with people, helping people establish new ways of maybe keeping their water clean, that kind of thing. Right. Bullshit. USAID was just as involved with NGOs, non-governmental agencies, which were not in any way non-governmental, by the way, in coup d'etats, in taking down democratically elected leaders, in starting different conflagrations all over the world. How the hell do you think got us into this disaster of a situation we're in right now in Ukraine? Who the hell do you think got us into the Iraq War? So why do you think Mika Brzezinski and Joe and Liz Cheney and a gentleman I had on my podcast yesterday who used to be the director of USAID, who says it's a great organization that's done nothing good. It helps children and, it's peace-loving. And I say, and apparently Mr. Trump and Mr. Rubio are saying, they're calling bullshit. Because what we're finding out is that they've done all kinds of nefarious things, not including paying journalists. Can you imagine? We've just learned, as I'm sure you're caught up on this as well, Ivan, that USAID was paying different journalistic entities. Most noteworthy is the Politico.
$26
So
million.
I checked yesterday. I'll just say one more thing because I think this is interesting. Being a reporter, I spend my life gathering information and looking for sources and stuff. So yesterday, when I read that USAID had apparently given upwards of millions of dollars, to $8 million or something like that to Politico, which they're saying they were just subscriptions. Well, who gives a shit? Could you imagine if you and I, and you and I have talked about, starting a startup to create something like Politico, but for Hispanics. Could you imagine if all we had to do was call somebody in the government of Mr. Trump or Mr. Biden or Mr. whatever, Mr. Obama, and say, hey, if you could just spot us $8 million to start our company, man, we would be off and running. And you don't have to write a check. Just make your employees, enough of them, buy subscriptions so we can total 8 million, and then our startup is going to be.
So, by the way, it was 8 million. It was 8 million last year. It was 26 million total. and it's crazy. There it is, 29 million. Look at that.
Thank you.
Good Lord. And it tells you every agency that bought it, not just
if it's
USAID.
1 million, it's wrong. So when you give money, and by the way, and here's what's really wrong, and I'm going to tell you from a journalistic standpoint. It's okay to have a relationship with a government entity as long as it's disclosed.
Right.
If before I start my podcast, I tell you, hey, hi everybody, welcome to Journalistically Speaking. This is a podcast I like to do every week. I love to talk about geopolitics, and I should let you know that this podcast has a business or fiduciary relationship with X. Maybe it's a coffee company, maybe it's you, maybe it's I should disclose that I have a relationship with with Tucker Carlson or with Donald Trump Jr. Disclose it. Now everybody knows. Okay, so just in case, you should know that me and Donald Trump Jr. are friends, and I've gotten to know him over the years. So maybe that might color some of the things that I do and say. But if you don't disclose it, and then I find out that you were getting this money from Donald, and I'm just making this up.
Right.
Donald Trump Jr. is not sending me money. But then you find out.
Well, if he does, let me know, man.
Donald Trump Jr.
If he
went
does,
out to
let me
dinner
know.
last night, and they're saying what a great guy he is. Well, duh.
That's right.
So, you know, that's what Politico's been doing. I went and checked yesterday.
Yeah.
So this is the thing I was trying to tell you, Ivan. Yesterday, when I read this story, the first thing I did, journalistically speaking, is I went and checked to see what kind of stories Politico was writing about certain things. I checked Ukraine, for example. Yeah. Every story they've written is pro-Zelensky, anti-Russia, for example. Where do they get that narrative? That's the official narrative of the U.S. State Department under Anthony Blinken.
Yeah.
So what are they pushing? The people who are paying them are getting the result of the story they paid for. Positive stories about their particular policies. That's bullshit, and that's not what journalism is supposed to be.
That's right. And, you know, look, this week we had a former CIA guy, and he came out straight up and he said, look, USAID is a CIA outfit. Yeah, sure, they do some charity work here and there, but it's really to do exactly what you said, to do soft coups. You know,
because
they're in the soft coup business.
For those of you who don't know this, so here's what happened. Ivan and I are going to give you a little history because we're both Latinos and we both know the history of what happened with the CIA. During the 1950s and the 1960s, the CIA got caught, right? They got caught with their hands in the cookie jar. They got caught trying to assassinate Allende. Actually, they kind of did assassinate Allende. So they interfered in the elections and the policies and the governments in Panama, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Iran, in Guatemala, they basically went in under the Dulles brothers and using the CIA and Marines and stuff, they did a coup, took out a democratically elected president, put in another guy, started a civil war. 200,000 people died. So, and I don't even like to say we did this. Certain corrupt assholes in our government did this, who run those kind of establishments. So what happened was they had these things called the Church Committee. The Church Committee was a committee that was held in the U.S. Congress where they looked at the CIA and they basically told the CIA, what are you guys doing? Yeah. You can't just go around willy-nilly on your own, assassinating leaders around the world, killing people, starting revolutions and civil wars and changing elections. You got to stop this shit. It's too much. You're out of control, which they were. Yep. And we as Americans all realized that they needed to be at least held back or measured. So they needed another way to continue to do this later on, and that's where USAID was born. Yep. There you go. Little history lesson.
Yeah, man, but it's true. It's absolutely true. And, and it's kind of a shame. And look, if you even go further, I bring this story up, all the time, Project Leyenda. The kidnapping, torture, and assassination of DEA Special Agent Kiki Camarena in Mexico by the cartels. I mean, we know the person who Hector Bayeres accused in the CIA of turning over Kiki. He's a longtime Cuban-American guy. We here in Miami, we know who he is. He's much older now, in his 80s or close to 90. So I'm not, you can do your own research and figure out who it is. I'm not going to throw this gentleman under the bus right now. But that's real shit, dude. And they use that for arms with the whole Iran-Contra stuff. With Ollie North and dude, it's the CIA has always been out of control. I don't think it's ever going to stop. I mean, do you think Radcliffe?
Listen, I'm an American, and I want what works for my country. And if there's some muscle that needs to be used from time to time because we're up against a terrorist organization or something that is truly nefarious and a danger to me, my family, my children, my country, I'm all for it. But as long as, and it's funny, it's taken Donald Trump, of all people, to step into the White House. Reagan didn't do it, Clinton didn't do it, Bush didn't do it, Bush didn't do it, Obama didn't do it, and the other Donald Trump apparently wasn't able to do it. It's taken Donald Trump to step in there and say, wait a minute, why are we electing a president and then having agencies acting outside the purview of the president, telling the president what to do? Right. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't the president elected by the people be deciding if we're going to change a government somewhere in the world or start a coup or send in the Marines or the CIA or, not that we need to nitpick everything they do, but there should be a certain, accountability.
I agree.
And that's what I think Mr. Trump is doing. While I don't agree with everything he's doing, I definitely agree with all he's doing. much of what the Doge efforts and other efforts are doing, because as I see it, it's just accountability. It's making the people who work in our government accountable to us, because we didn't vote for them. And those sons of bitches have been there for 30, 40 years doing whatever the hell they want, and they don't care who gets elected because they're going to keep doing the same thing.
Right, the famous deep state that everybody said, oh, that's bullshit, those are conspiracy theories. Well, fuck, it seems pretty real now, right? So
exactly.
It's interesting that you bring up Trump because, and you made those comments earlier about the right and the left and everybody's full of shit, I think people don't understand that Trump is not an ideologue. He's not a conservative. He's not this right-wing guy. He's not this, whatever they want to call him. He's a pragmatic business guy that's using common sense. And he keeps on bringing it up. He's like, I'm just bringing common sense to government. That's all I'm doing. And back to America where it belongs, because we've lost it a long time ago. And, people get caught up in these labels and they don't realize, dude, he's not Bush. He's not Reagan on the ideological spectrum. He's a very pragmatic guy, and he says, "Dude, this is fucked up. I don't, why are we doing this?"
I think he can't help himself. I think it's either because deep down he's just an asshole, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
Or maybe he's just a pragmatist, as you say, or maybe he just has this desire that he can't seem to in any way control, which I have too. My wife always says, "Man, you can't control yourself when I'll be Suzanne and I will be out, at dinner, and somebody at the other table will say something really stupid, and I'll literally just correct them, and she goes, "What are you doing?
Yeah, like
so what? You don't have to make everything right in the world." Well, I think maybe to a certain extent. Mr. Trump has that same characteristic, that to a fault, where sometimes I come off as an asshole and my wife tells me, that was stupid. You're in a restaurant having a nice dinner. Who gives a shit what they think? Yeah. Why did you have to correct them? But Trump has that tendency too, and the other presidents didn't. So there's a wonderful conversation. When Tucker went and talked to Putin, there was one thing I took out of that conversation. I talked to Tucker about this. And I talked to some of my sources in Moscow about this as well, which I thought was fascinating. So this short story, but it proves the point that we're trying to make here. So Mr. Putin says to Tucker, he says, "Look, I said to Condoleezza Rice, and I'll show you the date," and he did. "We had a meeting on such and such a date." You know how Putin is very specific about this. He's a kind of nerdy pragmatist kind of way. And he says, "On such and such a date, I met with Mrs. Condoleezza Rice, and I told her exactly this, this, and this. And I suggested to her, I said, look, would you go back and have a conversation with with your president?" And she said, "No, I'll talk to him right now. Let's get him on the phone." Has a conversation with President Bush, and he says, "Look, let's do this. You and I should start creating something. We have 7,000 nuclear warheads. You guys have 6,500 nuclear warheads. Let's put them together. Together, we, Russia, you, the United States, will protect the world from all these nefarious actors and all these terrorists. And we will create one kind of dome, one shield to make sure we don't have to be opposed to each other. Right. We will never attack you. You will never attack us. And we will protect the world." Condoleezza says, "Great idea." George Bush says, "Great idea." They take it back to whoever, these people at USAID, for all I know, these people in the deep state. They go back and they go, "Nope." So the president of the United States tells Mr. Putin, "Sorry, we brought it up back in Washington and they don't want to do that." Another example, Putin apparently was meeting with Clinton. He says to Clinton, "Why do you guys not let me be a part of NATO?
Right.
We want to join NATO. Why have us as an enemy when you can have us as a part of the group?"
As an ally.
I mean, you're going to save money. I'm not going to attack you guys. You guys don't attack me. That way we can be a part of the group, and then we can have meetings and we can work things out. Mr. Clinton says to Mr. Putin, this is all true, by the way. You can look it up. And look at the interview he did with Tucker. Mr. Clinton says, "You know what? I think that's a bad idea. I'm going to go take that back." Mr. Clinton takes it back. Then they call Moscow or whoever the hell these Russian dudes are over there. "Sorry, we can't do it. We'd prefer to have you as an enemy." Now, whose decision was that? Was that Mr. Clinton's decision and Mr. Bush's decision and Ms. Condoleezza Rice's decision? Or was that somebody else making that decision? And that's my point. Mr. Trump is different from those guys because those agencies that you and I are talking about, that's in the news that on this day, they controlled Obama. Look what he did in Syria and Libya. They controlled Clinton, no question. Look what they did in Sarajevo and other parts of the Baltics, which is, again, an act of aggression on the part of NATO, which is supposed to be a defensive force. They controlled Mr. Carter, Mr.
Everybody.
They basically told those guys what to do. And along comes this dude, Trump of all people, and he's the one telling them the gig is up, the party's over. From now on, we don't take orders from you. We give orders to you.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating.
I think it's healthy,
this is a story of our time.
I think it's healthy. I think it's good for transparency, and I think it'll level the playing field for a little bit. But Trump's not going to be around forever, right? He's only got 4 years, and then, Look, the deep state is like a cancer. It's never going to go away. It can go into remission. I
guess.
I hate to be negative like that, but man, it's an animal that's been around for a long, long fucking time, and I don't know if you can tame it. So you sent me, this commentary that you posted, and I'm going to read it if you don't mind.
Sure.
So for full disclosure, everybody knows, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and then you did a stint at RT, and then Biden shut that down and shut you down. So your comment is restoring my First Amendment rights as a journalist. Today, I call on the Trump administration to reinstate my First Amendment right to practice journalism, a right unjustly stripped from me by the previous administration, a politically motivated continuation of a debunked Russiagate narrative, which we all know is the Russian hoax, right? Mm-hmm. While I'm not partisan, which is true, you are far from partisan. Some people even claim you're a lefty, by the way, as you know. I share the belief of President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Ambassador Richard Grenell that engagement with Russia is a more productive path than avoidance. As an award-winning journalist, managing editor, and host on RT, I have dedicated years to fostering a deeper understanding between Americans and Russians, demonstrating that we have far more in common than our governments would have us believe. Truthful reporting fosters dialogue, promotes understanding, and paves the way of peace. I urge this administration to restore my ability to continue this crucial work and help rebuild the bridge that the Biden administration so recklessly destroyed. So talk to us about that.
Well, for starters, I do truly believe that there are no issues more important in our lifetime and for our children and grandchildren than war and peace. And I also believe that very few administrations have handled worse the issues of war and peace than the Biden administration have.
Yeah.
I also believe that the Biden administration has a vendetta against Russia, not necessarily because of anything Russia has done, but because they fear that somehow Russia has a relationship with Donald Trump and the Republicans, which is not true, by the way. There is no special relationship between Donald Trump and Russia. Yet, factions within the Democratic Party, and certainly Mr. Biden, are like a dog with a bone, and they're just not going to let that go.
Yeah.
Even though we all know it's been disproven, in their minds, it still has. So all those three things, I think we can all stipulate, right?
That's fact, right.
So here I go, and after working, as you said, on all these other places, I'm offered a job at RT. Larry King, an old friend of mine who used to work at CNN, who's since passed, God bless him, good guy, called me one day and said, Ricky, let me tell you something. They don't interfere with my narrative. They don't tell me what to say. We have an agreement. I pick my own guests. I do my own stories, and they've hired me to do this, and I'm happy with it. I said, well, Larry, I trust you. You and I worked together for many years. We're both Miami guys. And at the time, I thought it was a good idea. I started working for them. I thought, working for the Russians. Well, it turns out I experienced more journalistic freedom, less control over my narrative there than I did when I worked at CNN.
That's right.
And oftentimes when it came to push or shove at RT and there were issues where, we had disagreements about editorial issues, I won 75% of the time. When I'd say, no, guys, I'm sorry. I'll give you an example. They wanted me to not call Mr. Biden after he beat Mr. Trump 4 years ago, the the president-elect.
Yep.
He said, don't use the term president-elect. I said, that's the term we use in the United States.
Yep.
Right now, I mean, I know this can go to the courts, and maybe there was something, and maybe it'll change. But right now, because the votes have been canvassed officially, journalistically speaking, we call him the president-elect. They say, you can't call the president-elect. I said, look, if I can't call the president-elect, I'm leaving, and you can find somebody else to do your newscast tonight, because that's what we do. Sorry, you're right. We're going to respect. I mean, it was that kind of thing where we would have disagreements. They once wanted me to interview one of their ambassadors, and I said, and they sent me questions. I said, I don't accept questions. I don't accept questions. That's unethical, and it's irresponsible, and that's not way journalism practice.
Yeah.
I'll do the interview with him, and I can't give him my questions ahead of time. We can have a conversation. I'm not an idiot. We can have a conversation about what we're going to be talking about, so he knows and can prepare. But I'm not sending him questions, and I'm fucking not accepting his questions.
Right.
Okay, sorry, we made a mistake. So let me tell you something, man. When I worked in corporate media in the United States, the CNNs and the MSNBCs, talk about getting questions. They're written for you. They were prepared. The guests were screened. Yep. Certain people were allowed to be on the air. Other people were not allowed to be on the air. Certain people were kept off the air unless they knew they were going to say something friendly to them. Yep. So my general point is, I journalistically have the right to work, first of all, for whoever the hell I want to, even if it's Satan. If Satan tomorrow decides to start a corporate network or whatever, I should have the right to work for him. Obviously, I'm kidding. I'm a Christian, worse than Catholic.
Right.
Your mother and my mother taught us to hate Satan. So I'm just making the point. Yeah. It's not the government's place to pick winners and losers.
Yep.
So knowing that Mr. Rubio and Mr. Trump have said that they're going to effort to try and create better relations with Russia, knowing that I've already experienced many, many years of working with the Russians and have done sound journalism where I've criticized Mr. Trump and criticized both Biden and God, I forgot her name. Anyway.
Hillary Clinton?
No, the lady who ran for president.
Oh, Kamala Harris. Oh, my God. Jesus.
Can you believe I just forgot her name?
She was a disaster.
And because I always had that, all I'm saying is, with all that said, sorry I went around a long way to say it, I'm asking the Trump administration to get rid of a specific sanction, not to get rid of the sanction, but to give me permission, to give me an exception, a license to simply practice my craft as a journalist, which because of those crazy sanctions the Biden administration did, I'm being disallowed right now as a real, authentic American journalist from practicing my craft as a journalist.
But only with RT.
That's wrong.
But only with RT. That's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, or any other sanctioned entity. I think I'm not allowed, I'm not saying I want to work for the Chinese or for the Iranians or but I should be able to work for whoever the hell I want to work for. Because if they start saying you can't work for RT, tomorrow they'll say you can't work for Fox.
Yeah. Well, and going back to RT, I mean, shit, dude, like you said, Larry King was there. They had Scotty there. I mean, Scotty is
they
come
had,
on, man.
Dennis Miller.
Yeah.
They had me. They had
Ed Schultz.
Star Trek.
Ed Schultz was there as well for a little while before he died. He was a good guy.
Some of the people that Mr. Trump has now named, Ed Martin, who's now Mr. Trump's budget director, was on RT. Was on my show every day.
Yeah.
You were on my show on RT.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was on your show. I was on Scotty's. I was on Ed Schultz's show, and
we disagreed on your show. Yeah. You were going way out to the right, and I had to bring you back because I thought, okay, you're acting like a maniac. You're going too far.
But it was fun, man. That's the whole point. That's
America.
The whole point. Yeah. You gotta have a good time, and you.
Now I look back and I think turns out you were right. I was full of shit. I mean, I was trying to defend the Dems, saying no, and you were going, no, Rick, these guys are going too far and they're crazy, and I was saying no, don't name call. And
dude, I'm going to tell you something.
You should have name called. You were right. I was wrong.
I'm going to tell you something. Back in 2010, I'm not going to say who I said this to, but. I brought it up to, a former assistant secretary of state, and I said, Obama's using the IRS. He's like, dude, you're fucking crazy. He's like, now you're weighing the fucking end zones. You're in crazy land. The moment the government weaponizes against its own people is the moment we cease to exist as America. You're fucking bananas. Dude, whatever you're fucking drinking or taking, dude, wean off of it. You don't want to fucking be, one of those fucking crazies, blah, blah, blah. 2 years later, when the story broke, the first fucking call on my cell phone was this ambassador. And he goes, dude, I owe you an apology. Holy shit. Yeah. That is fucked up. I said, dude, I told you, man. I mean, and it's funny because I was talking to the CIA guy the other day this week. And I said, isn't it funny that all these people that were labeled conspiracy theorists, how a lot of that has come to be true? And he goes, well, not all of it, but a lot of it. You know, there are still some fucking crazy people out there. And I said, yeah, 100%. But, you know, a lot of it, and he was telling me about this red cell at the agency. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a team that chases down these conspiracy theories to find out if it's true. And he was telling me, he's like, you know, because usually when you have these conspiracy theories, there's some truth about it. They're just way off to the fucking way out there on it. But
no, listen, there's no question in my mind.
Like this whole thing about Comet Pizza, like Comet
JFK,
right?
And,
like Comet Pizza,
supposed to not talk about that, but it's true.
Like Comet Pizza in D.C. and tunnels under the Clintons' home with trafficking minors and drinking baby blood, and
that's bullshit.
All this crap was crap, but was there pedophilia in Hollywood? 100%.
Exactly. So they take one thing. But to your point. Yes, I will admit that I gave much more credit and room to the Democratic Party than I should have, because I didn't think they were capable of some of the things they have since done. Yeah. And if ever that was shown to me was during this last administration.
Yeah, but it's also Republicans, Rick, like you said earlier.
You're absolutely. McConnell's just as bad. Yeah,
yeah. I think it's a political class in general, dude. They are corrupt and disgusting and heinous. And look, like I said, Trump's got 4 years. What happens after that? Do we go back to the same crap, or did he change the Republican Party? Because a lot of people have voted for Trump, 70 whatever million. They're not all Republicans. I have friends that were lifelong Democrats that voted for Trump.
And let's talk for a minute about what Trump is doing, because I do believe. I'm kind of in the middle about this. I haven't really formulated all. I don't agree with some of his measures in the way he's going about it, but I'm liking the results. Yeah. So I'm kind of going back to the theory that you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Yeah. It's just impossible.
Right.
And I think he may be breaking some rules. Maybe he's doing some non-standard things that may or may not be legal or correct based on whatever the measure of that is. I'm not the one to decide. Those who disagree should take it to the court. And if they prove that he can't do that because he's taking powers that don't belong to him, then fine, prove it, and we'll find a way to do it. But what I'm saying to my friends and all who will hear me is you can't argue with the man's intentions, and you can't argue with the majority or most of the results that we're getting from these actions. And thank God somebody's actually finally taking actions on some of these issues which have been festering for decades in our country. So on the one hand, I'm thinking, whoa. You can't just go in there and fire people nilly-willy in an agency. And on the other hand, I'm going, God dog it, maybe they should be fired. I mean, I don't know. We're going through an interesting time right now. I think we're great people and a great country, and right now I think we've got the right guy at the helm, and I think we'll figure it out. But we should all check him just as much as we check anybody else, and not fall in love with any one human being, because the only person we should love is up in heaven and not here among us.
100%. And on that point, he's cutting, they're cutting USAID from 10,000 employees to 296. I mean, that's a fucking cut. Holy shit. Right. And
again, we all know that's kind of deserved. I mean, look at their history, know. Now, should he throw out every abuelita who's been in this United States for 18 years, and she goes to church every Sunday, and she teaches Bible school, and and should that person be manhandled out just because we want to make sure we control our border? There's where we get into the How do you make these
So I'm glad you got
decisions, and
into
how do
that. I'm glad you got into that. So I'm gonna bring something up. When Newt Gingrich was running for president, I was his Hispanic communications director, and I brought up a bunch of stuff with Newt, on Mexico City policy, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But on immigration, he had something that was very interesting that he said. He said, "Look, we can't fucking deport everybody. What we need to do is deport the fucking criminals and the people that are fucked up." Correct. But he goes, we got to find a way. And he had a great idea, Rick, that I think you're going to take communion with, because we've had some conversations, some sidebar conversations on this. And you just brought it up. And he goes, look, if there's somebody here that's been here for years, they're a contribution to our community. They go to church. They're on the school boards. Their neighbors love them. They're friends with neighbors. They work and they pay taxes. He goes, why would we want to uproot these people and throw them out? He goes, so we have to find a way. Maybe it's some way to vouch where you can bring in, your pastor, your employer, members of your community that know you, that are willing to vouch for you and say, this is a good standing member of my community. Then you know what? We find a way to put them in line, at least get them some papers so they can work legally, and then we give them some penalty. You'll never become a U.S. citizen, but maybe after 10 years we'll give you a green card or something like that. And find a way.
It's 2 steps that we have to take to make these correct. I think if I was in charge of this, at least not that I would be able to come up with the operational details to make it work, but I think I would be able to figure out that at least the mission should be twofold. A, as far as the people who are here, exactly what you and Gingrich alluded to. Make sure you can find a screening process that allows the people who've been contributing and who love this country, have contributed to this country, have fought in our wars, our pastors in our church are going to church, have risen, have taken care of their children. Their children have become good citizens in good standing. They don't have a criminal record. And yet, for some reason, because of the stupid legal process we have for immigration, they've been in this country for 13 years and they can't get their papers signed by somebody. Because it's just so stupid the way we do this thing. So, I agree.
But at the same time, we got to close the border. We got to close the border. We got to close the border. We got to close the border, and we got to stop letting people come in that way.
I got a better suggestion. In the old days, this used to work, and somehow we got away from it, and I don't know why we got away from it. I agree with those who say that because our population has aged, and it certainly has, the average white Anglo-Saxon in the United States is in his late 40s or something like that. Yeah. The average African-American is in their 30s, while the average Latino in the United States is in his 20s. Yeah. So we are by far, Latinos, people like you and I, Hispanic Americans, are by far the youngest
28 average age
group in the United States. Great. Yeah. So that's great. But we need people to do some of the work that many Latinos do. And I'm not going to say it's all far, because there's just as many nurses and doctors and lawyers who are Latino too. But there is a certain amount of, starting work, for people where they begin their careers, which is, a little more
manual labor.
Yeah, not exactly manual and not necessarily, blue skilled jobs or anything. Yep. So, what used to work in the old days was something called the Bracero program. There are people, by the way, a lot of these people, they don't want to live in the United States, but they do need to work. Bring them in. Give them a permission for 2 months. Put a tag on them if you have to. Do whatever you got. They're probably not going to stay. They want to go back. The only reason they stay is because they have to stay. Yep. Because if they leave, they can't come back in. Yep. Let them leave and come back in. Give them a work visa for 2 months. Let them work and go home. Give them one for 4 months, depending on what they do.
And Bush had that. I don't know if you remember.
And then they'll go back. All they want to do is put money on the table for their family. They won't bring their wife or their abuelita or anybody. They're going to leave them in Honduras or in Guatemala or wherever. They're going to come here, do the job, go home with $10,000 or $12,000 or $15,000, which in their country is like $40,000, $50,000, and they're good. Why don't we go back to doing
I know, that? And I was talking to somebody like exactly about that, because W43 had that guest worker visa program. Yeah. Why aren't we fucking using that more? Why, I don't understand. So we're allowing all these people to fucking cross the border illegally. We don't know who the fuck they are. Why don't we bring them in? If we need ranch hands, if we need, whatever it is, get a guest worker visa. Exactly. a seasonal fucking visa. And they'll do, a lot of these people will come in, and I've heard stories, bro, about people that they already know how to come in and out, and they've been doing it for years. And they come in and work.
When my parents came to the United States, they didn't come from Cuba because they hated Cuba and loved the United States so much that they needed to suddenly change everything about their lives and come to the United States. They came to the United States out of necessity.
Yep.
Your family came to the United States out of necessity. Hondurans, Guatemalans, the story I told earlier about Guatemala, a civil war that kills 200,000 people. Where did the Guatemalans go? They came here. Did they want to come here? No, they loved staying in Guatemala.
Yeah, but there's
everybody loves the place they're from.
Yeah, but there's a difference, right? Is legal versus illegal immigration.
Correct.
And I think we need to correct that because we can't have
force them to be illegal because of our policy where we make them sneak in, though we wink because our workers, pardon me, our labor, our employers need them, so they get them into the country. And then we have a system that doesn't allow them to leave, because if they leave, they're not going to be able to come back in. So then they have to stay here and send money to their family over there. So we should change that whole enthymeme around, turn it on its head and say, you can work here, but you can't stay here. And we'll tell you for how long you can stay. And if you overstay by 1 day, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. Yeah. Whatever the hell, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah. But you got to have some real penalties and a real solution. And everybody's been talking about this immigration reform for a while. And Trump offered to fix it last time. Remember, and Pelosi and Schumer said no. He said, "Fuck it, let's put total comprehensive immigration reform on the table. Give me the fucking wall and let's do it." And the Democrats didn't do it because they want to use that as a pawn, right? And they use that as a wedge issue, with voters. But the reality is this: if you look at every single poll right now, the vast majority of Americans are against what happened in the last 4 years, where you had an obscene amount of illegal immigration. And, and the problem is that you have, MS-13, you have Trinidad Agua, you have a lot of violent crime that has happened and has been out of control. And look, I've talked to CBP people, and they told me at one point in San Isidro, you had between 50 and 100 Russians coming in every day. The same thing with Chinese. And down here in Miami, what do we see the last 2 weeks? Vans of Chinese illegals that were shipped over from Bahamas that came over and dropped off, down by Pinecrest or whatever, right? So it's, dude, it's fucked up, right? I mean,
but in the end, we have to make, I agree, but here's what we can't do. We can't just say, there's a bunch of strange people in our country, let's get them all out. Because that doesn't work. What we have to do is have a cogent, intelligent, comprehensive, even complex answer to what is a comprehensive and complex problem. And we can do that. There's enough of us who understand the complexities without thumping our chest from the right ideological point or the left ideological point, both of which I think to a certain extent are full of shit on this issue.
Yeah, and that's why I think Trump is going to be able to fix it. I mean, he's pretty pragmatic, and he's said it openly. He's like, look, we're not going to be able to fucking deport 30 million people. Let's get rid of all the criminal element and then figure out a path, right?
Correct.
But you can't continue to let, millions of people bust through your border. I mean, that's fucked up. Here's the deal. You have about 680,000 people that have either detainers or some kind of criminal record. You're not going to be able to deport 10 million if that's the number that came through in the last 4 years. But even to deport 600, let's say 600,000, right? 680,000. I said million, so sorry about that. But yeah, 680,000. If we're capturing 1,000 a day, it's going to take fucking years.
Exactly.
So, everybody's got to, figure out that this problem needs to be resolved some other way. You're not going to be able to deport everybody. Exactly. Right.
Yeah, I told you the other day, I mean, I'm hearing it here, in South Florida. I'm hearing my friends and people I know who are coming to me and saying, oh, my God, I tried to, I have workers here at my ranch who've been here for years, and they're perfectly legal, and they have, they're in the United States, they're documented or whatever it's called. But from time to time, when there's a project that needs to be done on my ranch, and I'll say, listen, can you, whatever, I need to resod my, a certain part of the ranch, or I need a new stable made for some of the horses or something. He goes, yeah, I can do that. And I'll notice that when I go out in the yard or I go out on the ranch to see the work being done, I'll notice that there are different people in the property that I think he will get or recruit, right? And recently, I asked him to do a project on like some of the pavers that we have out here, and I said, "Listen, can you try and see if you can get that done for a certain event my wife wants taken care of?" And he says, "I can't get anybody to come here and work." I said, "What do you mean you can't get anybody to come here and work?" He goes, "No, none of the Latinos are leaving their houses because they're all afraid they're going to be picked up on the streets. They're literally cowering and hiding in their homes."
Yeah.
It's like, damn, really?
Yeah, and
Goes,
I've heard about that in construction sites as well. Yep.
Yeah, they can't get people to work. So, there's kind of a yin and a yang, and in
But
saying that,
there's also some fear mongering, Rick, because Homan is not doing that. He's not rounding up people walking down the street or going into construction sites. They're going after people that have warrants, that have detainers, that have a criminal record, that they know who they are. And I've spoken to people at the FBI, that deal with in this area, and they say, we know exactly where they are. We know exactly who they are. We know their name, date of birth. We know everything. We were just prevented from making arrests.
Yeah.
So look, that's going to keep them busy for a while. But
like we said, it's not something that's going to be done overnight. It's not simple. There might be unfortunately some collateral damage, and there might be good people who might be sent back who we wish would have stayed, because they are literally very good people, and you know them and I know them, and I think all Americans know them. We've all met people who come to this country who may not have the correct documents, but they have the correct attitude and they have the correct love for America. Unfortunately, some of those people may end up being, caught up in this thing, and that's just the way it has to be done.
Yeah, I think it's the governor of, I can't remember if it was Minnesota or one of these places, that said, he's housing and protecting an illegal, which people suspect is house cleaning people or his maid.
Yeah, whatever. We all have.
Yep.
Okay, let's not be hypocritical.
Yeah.
You've had people work for you, and you probably didn't even know we're in the country illegal. So, are you harboring?
Hey, brother,
I don't know, man. It's hard to figure out.
I had people that worked for Sabine working for us that we didn't know until later that they were part of Sabine. So, I mean, it's impossible, man. It's impossible. By the way,
it's not the job of the average American to go around checking people's papers. And, when somebody comes to mow your lawn, heaven forbid, and I know that may not sound right, I'm just using that as an example. If somebody comes to mow your lawn or paint your house and you recruit them and somebody brings them over, you're not going to go out there and say, hey, I want to see your papers and I want to see who's your name. And we don't do that in America. That sounds very Gestapo also. So, it really is. It's a complex issue. But like I said before, and I think maybe this is where we can kind of wrap up this conversation. What Trump is doing is necessary, because you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. There's a certain amount of stuff that's going to be broken in the process of making things right. Hopefully, it will be done in such a way so that it's not severe and not too hurtful to too many people. But sometimes these things happen.
So you got 3 minutes, Rick. I know we got 3 minutes with you. Real quick, what's going to happen to media now that they don't have government funding?
Well, there is one thing that they still have, and unfortunately it exists in this country, and we got to at some point get rid of it, and that is the corruption in politics and the money that people literally are allowed to buy politicians in the United States of America willy-nilly. You want to own a guy, you want to own a McConnell, you can own him, because McConnell went from being a poor dude making $150,000 a year. He's now worth 30-some million. You want to own Pelosi? You just pay her enough money and she'll do the shit you want her to do. So you give her the money. So there's literally $1.5 billion that was spent during the presidential election last year by donors. That $1.5 billion came mostly not from regular Americans, but from less than 1 or 2% of Americans. So what am I saying? Where does that money go? It goes to CNN. It goes to Fox. It goes to MSNBC. It goes to the media. So do you think our media in this country is going to go out tomorrow on a crusade to get rid of corruption in politics? No. The media lives off of the corruption in the politics. So CNN does not do stories. Every once in a while, they'll bust a politician. Menendez and Blagojevich. Those are the two I can think of, right? They got two guys who, as far as I'm concerned, were no different than the rest of them. Not that they're great guys or anything. I'm not saying Menendez is a great guy. I'm just saying when you really look at it, he took what 100,000 in gold bars, and they bought him a Mercedes. That's
Yeah.
160,000. There are people out there doing a lot worse.
Oh,
So
hell
to
yeah.
fix the media, you have to fix the thing that feeds the media, and there are many things that feed the media. Among them, our corrupt political system.
Yeah. Awesome,
There you
brother.
go.
Well, hey, I appreciate you, man. You're always fun to have, and we're going to continue our conversations, I know.
Love you like a brother, man.
All
Let's
right,
do
man. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend, man.
it. Dale.
All
Ciao.
right, take
Thanks.
care. All right, guys. Hope you had a little fun with Rick today, and I know there's going to be a whole bunch of comments on the throw them all out and zero tolerance on illegal immigration. I agree. We got to close the border. We can't let people come into this country illegally. There's got to be like Rick was saying, a formal and legal process to get these folks into the country legally. If it's temporary worker visas or whatever it is, have them come in, have them go out, take, whatever, contribute to whatever it is. And then for people that want to come in on a permanent level, there is a process for that. And, I think if you come into the country and you break the law and you came here illegally, then I think you waive that right. You waive that right for, a permanent residency and citizenship. So, it's going to be tough. The problem is that we have so many people in here. I just used an example. If you do the math, I'll do the math right now with you guys here. It's fucked up because if we grab, let's say 680,000, right? That's how many criminals we have, and we're grabbing about 1,000 a day. That's 680. That's 680. No, that's Jesus Christ. I can't even do my fucking math. That's 365. So that's like 2 years. It would take us 2 years just to get rid of the criminal element in this country. And what about the millions that poured through during Biden? Some people are saying, dude, it was 8. Some people are saying it was 12. Some people are saying it was 15. Those are astronomical numbers. We got to find a way to fix that problem. We got to find a way to at least stop that problem. And I think President Trump is the only guy that has, the character to do that. And we've seen how he's forced Mexico to put 10,000 troops on the border. He's moved troops down to the border. I don't think anybody's going to get through there now. But we got to finish that wall. We got to do something. It's crazy. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed going rogue this week. We're going to have a very awesome week coming up with some law enforcement people talking about some of these threats with possible terrorists inside the country. We're going to talk to a lobbyist who is actually on the cannabis issue on trying to get marijuana legalized. Want to hear his thoughts and why he thinks that should happen and why it shouldn't happen. I think it's legal in a lot of places right now for medicinal purposes. I don't know if I agree on having it be a recreational drug or something legal like alcohol, but there's a lot of data out there on both sides, and I'm gonna challenge them on that because we know that there's enough data out there on marijuana that destroys your brain. It makes you slow. It makes you lethargic, and has many other problems. So let's see what he says. He's the pot lobbyist. So hopefully he'll have come prepared with a lot of data and take some tough questions. But we're also going to bring in a doctor who is very much anti-vaccines. Has written a bunch of books and is very well known. And we're going to have her on the show to explain to us why she's so anti-vaccines. I think everybody is at least anti-COVID vaccine because we all know it's full of shit and it didn't do anything. But I don't know. What about the rest of them? I think there is a lot of questioning about shit like Gardasil, for HPV. Why would you need to get a child an HPV vaccination? There's some bizarre shit out there, and we're going to enjoy having a conversation with her. And then we're bringing in some specialists, to talk about the deep state. And obviously, we're going to be following what's going on with all these things. Kash Patel is supposed to be, confirmed next week. We know he's got a very, very hard agenda. starting day one, and we're going to follow what Pam Bondi's doing because we think she's a rock star, and it'll be very, very fun to see the changes she's doing. She's already making a bunch. So, anyways, you can watch us on Rumble if you are watching us now, or you can follow us on any podcast platform that you like. We're on Screecher, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Pandora, we're on Audible, we're on Amazon Music, Podbean, you name it, all of them. Any podcast platform you want, you're going to find us there. Download us, listen to us, share us with your friends. And if you really want to watch the video, then go to Rumble. That's the only place you're going to see it. And we'll see you next week, guys. Have a great weekend. Cheers.